I've been doing some hefty thinking about gaming lately, and modern gaming has been boring me, and it makes me sad. And let me explain. There's a lot of pros and cons to a lot of things, but I've just been very disappointed and I'd say disgruntled with the modern gaming scene as of late. Oh, and also you will see lots of paint on my hands and my face and in my hair that I can't get out. I've been painting my house with Ricky. Thank you, Ricky. I appreciate you. You know, I was just kind of going through a backlog of original old Nintendo games and Super Nintendo games and even like early PlayStation. I'd say like late 80s, 90s, early 2000s. And it's so hard because when I think about modern gaming and my disappointment, I immediately think of like, what do my kids think, right? They would think like, Dad, you're being a boomer. You know, you're old, you're 40 now. Gosh. But there's so many things about retro games and so many memories that I have that I think are never going to be replicated again. And what I mean by that is I don't think it's quite possible to replicate what we got growing up in the earlier generation of video games. And I think the first big point would be the huge leaps and bounds within generational gaming. The way we got games presented to us felt like a Super Bowl every time a new console came out. And I know people can say, well, we do get that feeling nowadays, we do, but I'm talking about not necessarily the marketing leading up to it, but the payoff, right? Is the payoff there? Back in the day, Boomer activated, Boomer card, go! You would have such big leaps from console to console. Yes, of course, there was things that maybe weren't that big of leaps, like, you know, certain DSs to DS Lites or this to 3DS, whatever it may be, not saying in particular, but there were some that weren't as, you know, extravagant as others. But there was such a big difference that the console wars and the bit wars were a thing. I know when I was a kid, I never paid attention to necessarily console wars, but I very much paid attention to bits. I didn't know what they mean. I don't even know if I still know what they mean, but back then they were everything and you could see them. And that's the difference, right? Right now, when let's say the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, which by the way, in my opinion, I was talking with Ricky today, these have just disappointed me beyond measure. I've owned both, I still own both, and they've just disappointed me beyond measure. And I don't know what it is. I'm trying to get myself excited. I buy the games. I buy all the games that people tell me about. But these leaps that we had back in the day were so easy to digest. You're like, wow, that's a new console. That feels different. Holy cow, 8-bit to 16-bit. Holy cow, 16-bit to 32-bit. Holy cow, 32-bit to 64-bit. Oh my gosh, we're in 3D world. What in the world is happening? And then getting to perfect those things like the PlayStation, the PlayStation 2, to PlayStation 3, which is where I think the era of gaming kind of stopped feeling like, holy cow, when you see games, right? PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. It was good and got a little better and a little better. And yes, technical terms, you can say, well, they technically got way better, dude. You're not a tech guy. I know that. But seeing them, it almost looks the same, right? And I know we're just talking about graphics here, but it didn't feel like any big leap. When I put on my PlayStation 5 and I bought my OLED just for it, and same for Xbox Series X, I was geared up and ready to have my mind blown like, this is the next gen. Again, I bought into the hype and I bought it and I turned it on and I'm like, it looks like my PlayStation 4. Oh man, can I get a refund? No, I played some of the games and I felt some of the goodness in it, but I just don't feel like we're ever gonna get that graphical leap to where without anybody explaining to you ray tracing and all this stuff, right? Without anybody explaining it to you, I argue that I'm one of the best guinea pigs for gaming because I don't know anything about specs or tech. So for me, it just comes down to what my eyeballs see and what my hands feel and what I'm playing, and what I've been playing feels a lot like what I've been playing years ago, which can be great. But I just think the excitement of finding a new feel in these games, like the new feel, not saying they're all bad, but I'm just like, it's good, but I've felt this experience before. I know I won't be alone in this one, but excessive monetization in modern gaming is egregiously gross. We're talking, I've always loved Call of Duty. I got the Call of Duty clan tag on my arm. I say it every time I bring up Call of Duty to show that I love the game. I love the series. But man, you turn on the games nowadays and you're like, what am I looking at? How do I play the game? Okay, I was just wanting the screen to show you guys some gameplay. And before I even played, there's like 3 things I have to click on and a legal summary. Huh? It just forced a update. I couldn't even show you what I wanted to show you. Great, this will probably be 6-7 hours. I said 6-7. There's like 80 different options and menus and things popping up. And do you want this one or this password? I mean, it's quite literally like 13 different things to click on in different games. You can ask my son, I don't have any footage or anything. I went to try to buy something because my friend bought it in Call of Duty, like one of the Modern Warfare 3 remastered or whatever it was. I literally didn't know what I was looking at and paid $60 for the wrong game because they like worded it in some way that messed me up. I feel like everywhere we're looking, there's advertisements popping up at me from all corners. And I'm like, I just want to play the game and enjoy the game, which also leads into the talk of games, whether they were good or bad back in the day, which is why the good games thrived and stick out as some of the best games of all time, because when the games were done, they were done. For better or worse. That's not me saying, I know people are going to say, well, but we had so many crappy games back then. There was so many garbo games. You're right, there was. And guess what? Those games went down as not standing the test of the time because they weren't the best games in the end. And I'll also argue that a lot of those weekend rentals, even if they were somewhat bad games, you were forced to play them. And in return, sometimes those bad games ended up being all right because you put the time in, you put the energy in because you had nothing else. And right then and there, you found yourself playing the game like crazy and you're like, hey, I got pretty good at this and now I'm pretty far and this game's pretty fun, which is why nostalgia exists for a lot of games that sometimes aren't the best games. And people go, hey, that's not the best game. And it's like, well, you didn't grow up the way I did. For me, I remember being a kiddo and having this big feeling of playing Legacy the Wizard with my brother's then friend at the time named Joseph. I remember that we loved that game and he'd come over and we'd make a big scene about it. And we'd play Legacy of the Wizard all night and we loved the music. And to this day, I sing the praises of Broderbund just for that game. And it's not known today as the best game, but it's one of those games that, again, back then, if that's what you had and that's what you rented, you played it.
Your desperate mission is to find and defeat the most powerful dragon in history, Legacy of the Wizard, only for your Nintendo Entertainment System.
And I think that's the big problem we have even with movies nowadays, with things like Netflix. And as big as a blessing as these, PlayStation passes or Xbox passes are, where you can scroll through a million things, I think it forces us to get really bored of games really quickly because we know the other options out there. It's right. It's like social media. Like you're like, this is pretty interesting, but there's another thing that I can see below that's recommended. So I'm going to click on it and not really get the full enjoyment out of this movie or out of whatever it is I'm watching. And I feel like there's so many games that are going down now in the history as like awesome games because we put the time into them. And I just feel like nowadays that's not going to happen as much because plain and simply, when we get bored, you just move on. Game Pass is flashing something new. PlayStation flashes something new. Ooh, this is their update. Ad time. Let's click on it and go to the next. Squirrel! And I want to ask you all too before I keep going on. It's not that modern games suck. I want to make that very clear. There's a lot of very good games out there. But what is it that makes me not interested? And I don't know if this is like a therapy question or something, but for some reason, there's very few games that I just care to play, and I'm always going back to my retro games. Why? What is that? Is it because they're better games, or I'm more attached to those experiences? I don't want to try new things. I don't know what it is. The only modern game I'm playing really right now, and I play it a lot, is Skate. The new Skate game. It's called Skate Dot, which is like the worst name. Just call it Skate 4. But I play that all the time. It's very therapeutic for me. Skate 3 is probably one of the most played games I've ever played in my entire life. Played that game unfathomable amount of hours. But I don't know. I feel like quite literally like a boomer when I have this conversation with myself because I'm like, I just don't even know if I have an answer. I'm just like, it feels so meh. Another fun thing, even though I know, like places exist at malls nowadays, which a lot of malls are dead. There's actually a lot of booming malls by where I live in Orange County, California. But things like arcades back in the day were booming. Like this is like you get to mix social with gaming in person, which is another, couch co-op thing. And it's a weird thing for me to think about, especially as a dad of 3 kids. Only my son really games. And even then he's not really like a gamer. He'll just play here and there. And I do have a weird feeling because he will be chatting with his friends, and they're having fun and my son is screaming and having a good time. And I love it. I'm like, that is so fun. You guys are having so much fun. And the old man in me is always thinking, but how much more fun would he be having if he was sitting on the couch with them playing? Because again, for us who grew up with it, we know that almost nothing beats couch co-op. There's something about, you can imagine, and I tell my son, like, you can imagine the fun you're having screaming, yelling. Now imagine doing that and your buddy's sitting right next to you and you smack him, you know, in the back of the head and he's laughing. You just punch each other because you're mad. It just adds another. Pikachu's next to me and he just fell down. It adds another layer of fun and like engagement into it. And I don't think we're ever gonna go back to that in modern gaming. Yes, there are some, you know, a lot of good indie developers and maybe some AAA, I don't know, that are encouraging couch co-op, mostly indie developers. The couch co-op days, the social feel of, you know, being in an arcade and kind of doing it with people as new things are happening and discovering new games. There's my next topic right there. This is a big one for me. Discovering new games without knowing what's coming, right? And that's a big part of why box art mattered back in the day. Huge. I mean, I did a series back in the days called Convinced, where I'd read the back of the box and say, like, would you have been convinced as a kid? Because that was so important back then. Box art was everything, right? Selling the game. And yes, many of the games would cheat and give us these box arts that have absolutely nothing to do with what's on the game. You know, but you look at it and you're like, this looks cool, I'll rent it, you know, which is why I rented Wall Street Kid as a kid, because I thought it looked cool and I wanted to be a rich little kid. Boy, was I wrong with Wall Street Kid. And for better or worse, the element of surprise and seeing what happens within games was never spoiled by YouTube or a review. And I will say there's even stuff nowadays where I'm like, what? That got fed to me without me even clicking on it. I didn't want to see that. I remember when the new Star Wars movie came out, the episode 7, Force Awakens, whatever one that is, whether you like it or not. I remember clicking on something that said like spoiler free Star Wars graphics comparison, like, you know, whatever, CGI comparison. And it started out and someone literally baited me and showed me, by the way, if you haven't seen the movie, click off, literally showed Han Solo getting killed. I was like, I didn't want to know that. I wanted an element of surprise. And that's how I feel a lot of times for games nowadays, where I'm like, we're getting bombarded with 80 reviews popping up. People are using in their thumbnails the score that they're giving. And I'm like, no, I don't like my bias being, you know, already swayed before I even read it for myself, right? It's like politics. I don't want to see someone saying something before I know what's happening. I like to look at it myself and be like, oh, well, that's where my opinion is now based on what I play. And back in the day, there was almost no error for that because you weren't finding it unless you were, you know, opening your Nintendo Power or opening your Game Informer or Sega Visions and finding out for yourself, you know, looking for that. And you had to like really go out and seek it out. Nowadays, it just gets fed to you so easy because it's, you know, people are scrolling on shorts or whatever it is, and it's just like, boom, there it is, boom, there it is, boom, oh, shoot, wasn't ready for that. I feel like there's so much element of surprise lost because everybody has to say everything about every game that's coming out. So I surely miss the days when you just went in and were like, hey, I ended up loving Off-Road Baja on Super Nintendo because it was awesome. Now, you name a game, it's like, oh, I know games that I've never played that I heard are hot garbage because that's what everybody on the internet says before I even wanted to know it. I never even had any interest in Concord in my life, but all of a sudden I knew that everybody in the world hated it and thought it was stupid. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess that's what everybody's saying. I guess I'll never play that game. Maybe I would have liked it. I don't know. Also, mascots with like personality, like Mario and Sonic and Crash Bandicoot, like all poking at each other. There was so much personality within video games. You know, there was so many times that these companies would try to make their own mascots, you know, whether it be, you know, weird ones like Alex Kidd or, you know, Bonks or Airzonk or whatever it is, Arrow the Acrobat, you know, all these anthropomorphic animals and characters who kind of seemed larger than life that you were well aware that the company was trying to kind of give so much personality to that it would kind of become like the face of that console or the face of that generation of games. And a lot of times they failed, and obviously the big ones prevailed, and we all know who they are now. There was so much of that within personality. Again, that's not me saying modern games suck or there are no personality. I've seen many games that are awesome nowadays from my friends who are super into, you know, modern gaming. I just can't find myself to push myself to always want to play them. And I don't know why. Why? Help! I feel like what I need from the audience is other opinions on like what games, based off what I've said in this video, like now you've kind of learned a little bit about me if you don't know me and you know what I like. What do you think are some games that I would play that would just make me happy? And I think that's all I really want in a game. I want to try a game that I've never heard of, and I have no bias for if it's going to be good or bad, because it just might be an under the radar fun game that has a cool, fun soundtrack and is simply fun to play. At the end of the day, you're not going to convince me to play a game at the end of the day because the graphics are the best, or maybe the soundtrack. I'm a sucker for soundtracks, but it's just at the end of the day, if I go, I enjoyed that, I had fun playing that, whatever it is. I'll say my brain typically just wants to have fun playing a game, whether I'm laughing, whether I'm goofing around, where I'm being put to the test like Super Meat Boy or something. So just, I could use some suggestions, some help, some tips to where do I need to go here with the next generation that's just gonna get me excited again to really dive into modern. And again, I got the OLED, I got all that. None of that matters to me. Let me know your thoughts. Are you loving this generation? Are you hating this generation? Or are you like me and you're just stuck in the past, wanting to keep putting in Super Mario World and Blaster Master while watching The Tick every night of your life? I don't know what it is. Let me know. Hey, I never asked just for you guys to subscribe. You could do it if you want. That'd be cool. If you can help us to keep making videos by going to check out our Patreon, anything you want. Either way, I love you and I'd kiss you on the lips. If I had to. I would do it for free.